Welcome back to my channel at The Movie Optimist, everybody. Today I'm here to talk about the nominations for the films in 2024 at the 2025 Oscars. I'm going to breeze past this and let you guys know who I want to win, but who I think will win. Some of the topics I'm going to really brush over because I have not seen every single film on this list. There's only so much time in a day, and I do have a regular 9 to 5, but I try and see as much as humanly possible. But yeah, some categories I'm just kind of like lacking on. Like, I've only seen one documentary this year, and that is Superman, a Christopher Reeve story. So I haven't seen the rest of the films, so I can't really give my opinion on who I think should win because I've only seen one of them. So categories like that I'm going to breeze over, and I'm really only going to discuss the big topics here, like Best Director, Best Cinematographer, Best Actor, Best Actress. A lot of like the short film stuff I'm not really going to touch upon because I haven't seen them. With that being said, let's get into it. And we'll start off with original score. We have The Brutalist, Conclave, Emilia Perez, Wicked, and The Wild Robot. And at the end of the day, who I want to win is The Wild Robot, but who I think will win is Wicked. Now, the Oscars, I don't like to often sit here and say that they're super political. I like to think that it's a fair, diverse voting system, but sometimes they do go with like the popular vote to keep the mainstream audience, the people that aren't huge movie fans, happy. And although I think The Wild Robot deserves the win because the score they created for that film is a character in and of itself, when there is stuff going on in The Wild Robot and you're being brought into tears, it would not be possible without the soundtrack that is literally ripping the tears from your eyeballs out of your face. It is so hard-hitting and heartfelt, and unlike any of the scores from the other movies, that I just don't see how it doesn't win here. But again, I do think that this vote is going to go to Wicked for the sheer amount of popularity that that movie's going through right now and the amount of love that the world has shown for this movie. So I think that Wicked, like I said, will win, but I want The Wild Robot to. Now going on to visual effects, we have Alien Romulus, Dune Part 2, A Better Man, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and Wicked. Now look, I love Alien Romulus. They used a lot of practical effects here, but it isn't the best practical effects category. It's the best visual effects. And at the end of the day, as much as I love Dune Part 2, it is my favorite film of this year, and I do love Wicked. There is no denying that Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, whether you liked it or loved it or hated it, is the most visually stunning film this year. It's an entire film of motion capture actors with visual effects CGI apes put over their body. It looks so real and so realistic. You could see the fibers on their hairs move when wind blows past them. It's the most visually stunning film in the visual effects department. Like, yes, Dune Part 2 looks incredible. I mean, you got Paul Atreides riding a sandworm into battle, but most of that film is just shot in a desert that they make look very cinematic with production designs and everything. But an entire 2-hour movie in Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is filmed with visual effects, and it looks so real that I don't see how they don't win. Now, not only do I want them to win, but I do think that they will actually take the win for the Oscar. Now, for the category of sound, we have A Complete Unknown, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, Wicked, and The Wild Robot. Now, sound isn't so much music as much as it is the sound design, the sound of gunshots going off or feet moving on the floor, the sound of wind and cars passing, because a lot of the time when you're watching a movie, the sound that you hear in it isn't what was recorded on set, but what's added by a sound designer in the edit process of making a movie. And on that aspect, I'm gonna have to say that not only do I think it will win, but should win, is Dune Part 2. There's just so much complexities in what's going on in Dune on a different foreign planet that Denis had to create with the cinematographer here, that they're literally creating sounds you've never heard of and giving them to creatures you've never seen in ways that are believable, like the sound of a sandworm traveling under the sand, the sound of a sandworm in general when they breach the sand, the sound of Paul Atreides talking to an entire room filled with people and trying to gain their trust and helping him lead a battle against the Baron Emperor. You have futuristic weapons, you have the spacecraft that they fly around the planet of Arrakis, and even in the universe itself. There's so much to this movie's sound, whereas in all the other films are kind of more grounded in reality. Like, yes, Wicked is fantastical, but there's not a lot in terms of creating new sounds that you've never heard of before. Same thing with The Wild Robot, same thing with Emilia Perez, which is grounded in reality in the real world. I just think that Dune takes the cake here for this. Now, in makeup and hairstyling, you have A Different Man, Emilia Perez, Nosferatu, The Substance, and Wicked. And I think that this is a two-horse race between Wicked and Nosferatu, because The Substance, Emilia Perez, and A Different Man are all, again, grounded in reality. So they're all wearing kind of normal clothes, but in Wicked and Nosferatu, they're both designed to be different than the real world. I mean, in Wicked, you're literally creating fantastical costumes, and in Nosferatu, they're taking you back to 100 years ago in Germany, where everything has to be period accurate costume design, and that's something that takes a lot of research and detailing to bring to the big screen in a believable way. Now, who I want to win is Nosferatu, because everyone looked incredible in that movie, and it is a lot harder to dress an entire city to look like 1800s Germany than it is in a 2020 something Emilia Perez or in a fantastical Wicked movie. Now, who do I want to win? Well, Nosferatu. Who do I think will win? I think Wicked is going to win just because of the popularity behind it, but again, Nosferatu should get the Oscar here. Now, in terms of editing and the first category where I genuinely feel disrespected in, and with that we have Anora, The Brutalist, Conclave, Emilia Perez, and Wicked. Now, who do I want to win? Well, Wicked here, because not only is this movie incorporating dance numbers and musicals into the film, but you're also creating this big, grand, fantastical world that doesn't actually exist. And the flow of that movie, if it was edited poorly, would have been all over the place, but it just takes you on this grand adventure through this magical land, and you don't get to be as popular as the movie was if it wasn't edited in a way that is fun and energetic and takes you on a journey that never gets boring. They often say that a movie is shot on location, but it's made into a movie in the edit, and that's wildly true here, especially with this film. So who I want to win is Wicked, but who I think will win is The Brutalist. Now up to cinematography. You have The Brutalist, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, Maria, and Nosferatu. Now who I want to win is Dune Part 2, and who I think will win is Dune Part 2, because have you seen that fucking movie? The only competition it has, I think, is in Nosferatu, because Robert Eggers knows how to paint a beautiful landscape with cinematography, but there's just so much happening in Dune Part 2. It's impossible for me to see how Greg Fraser doesn't win this. It's just so epic in scope that it would be an absolute shock if he doesn't win. So not only do I think Dune will win, but it's also who I want to win. Next up is costume design, and we have A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Gladiator 2, Nosferatu, and Wicked. And this is hard, man. This is a really hard subject, because you have something like Gladiator 2, where you're literally dressing everyone to be in medieval Greek times, and it looks fantastic. In Conclave, you have the costumes and the sets of, well, being inside the church and having everyone dressed accordingly. In Nosferatu, you're literally recreating, like ancient Germany. In Wicked, you're literally creating fantastical characters in their costumes. So it's just like all these categories are so out there and not grounded in reality that if any one of them won, I would just be like, yeah, I get it. Like, I get it. Like, I wouldn't be mad if one won over the other. Now, who I want to win is Nosferatu, because I think it was a lot harder to dress that than anything else in this, but who I think will win is Gladiator 2. Now, for production design, we have The Brutalist, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Nosferatu, and Wicked. Who I want to win is Nosferatu, because they did the most with their setting here outside of anybody else. Again, I love Dune Part 2, it's my favorite film, but they did shoot most of it in a desert. They didn't really have to do much in terms of production design outside of the costumes, whereas in Nosferatu did. Who I want to win is Nosferatu, but who I think will win is The Brutalist. Next up is animated feature, and we have Flow, Inside Out 2, Memoir of a Snail, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, and The Wild Robot. And who I want to win here is The Wild Robot. That movie brought me to
man tears.
But who I think will win is Inside Out 2, because again, it was a much bigger movie than The Wild Robot. It reached a broader audience, and I just think that, again, at the end of the day, the Oscars sometimes likes to give it to the popular vote. Now for adapted screenplay. We have Conclave, A Complete Unknown, Emilia Perez, Nickel Boys, and Sing Sing. Now, who I want to win is A Complete Unknown. I thought that movie was phenomenal, but who I think will win is Emilia Perez because of the subject matter and the world right now that we're in. I think that, again, the Oscars this year are skewing a little bit more towards a political agenda, unfortunately. And I'm not a political channel. I'm not going to get into the ins and outs. I'm not going to bore you for the next 15 minutes, but that is who I think will win and who I would want to win. Now for original screenplay. We have Anora, The Brutalist, A Real Pain, September 5, and The Substance. Now, who I think will win is The Brutalist, but who I want to win is Anora. That movie was so left field. I had no idea what it was about when I originally saw the trailer, and then I watched the movie and I was blown away by it. But The Brutalist just swept at the Golden Globes, and I think that that's going to happen here as well. I think that this movie is going to be walking away with the most Oscars, and I think that it's going to win this category here, but I do think that Anora deserves it over that. I just don't think it'll actually win. Now for Best Supporting Actress. We have Monica Barbaro for A Complete Unknown, Ariana Grande for Wicked, Felicity Jones for The Brutalist, Brutalist, Isabella Rossellini for Conclave, and Zoe Saldana for Emilia Perez. Now, who I think is going to win is Zoe Saldana for Emilia Perez, but who I want to win, honestly, is Ariana Grande for Wicked. And I don't know if that's just because I was so taken back by the fact that she blew me away the way that she did. I loved her performance. She was the star of that movie for me. I knew she could act because she was on Disney Plus, but Disney Plus acting is a lot different than Hollywood acting, and she showed up here and was an absolute wonderful Galinda. This movie really rested on her shoulders for me, and the way she portrayed her was just so awe-inspiring, and it made me, more so than any of the other actresses on this list, excited to see what she does next. So I would like for her to win, but again, I think Zoe Saldana is going to win. Next up is Best Supporting Actor. We have, sorry, I'm going to need my phone to pronounce this, Yura Borisov in Anora, Kieran Culkin in A Real Pain, Edward Norton in A Complete Unknown, Guy Pearce in The Brutalist, and Jeremy Strong in The Apprentice. Now, who do I want to win? Edward Norton for A Complete Unknown, but I think that Guy Pearce is going to win for The Brutalist, just because, again, it's a movie that swept at the Golden Globes, but I think that Edward Norton really brought something different to his role in A Complete Unknown that we haven't seen from him before, and I genuinely think his performance was better than Guy Pearce's in The Brutalist, but at the end of the day, I do think that they're going to give this to Guy Pearce. Now, for Best Actress, we have Cynthia Erivo in Wicked, Carla Sofia Gascon for Emilia Perez, Mikey Madison for Honora, Demi Moore for The Substance, and Fernanda Torres for I'm Still Here. That being said, I do think that Demi Moore should win. She is my choice to win just because of the subject matter of The Substance and what she went through in that film and her performance towards the end of it. But who I think will win is Carla Sofia Gascon for Emilia Perez, just because of the popularity going around that movie right now. Next up is Best Actor. You have Adrian Brody in The Brutalist, Timothy Chalamet in A Complete Unknown, Coleman Domingo in Sing Sing, Ralph Fiennes in Conclave, and Sebastian Stan in The Apprentice. Now, I've seen all the films on this list, and who I genuinely want to win is Timothy Chalamet in A Complete Unknown. He was transportive as this character here. He had to literally learn to sing just like him, and it sounds almost perfect. His acting was great, his singing was great, the movie was great, everything about it was literally a transformative experience, and I didn't get that with any of the other films. Like, yes, Adrian Brody is great in The Brutalist, but he didn't embody somebody that I've known from the pop culture zeitgeist the way that Timothy Chalamet did. Like, he literally had to convince you he was somebody that he wasn't, which, yes, at the end of the day is acting, but I've seen people try and be other people, especially on this list, that I don't think did a great job, and I genuinely just think Timothy Chalamet is like a modern day Daniel Day-Lewis. He's not quite there yet, but he's pretty close. He is just a great actor, and I do think he was better than Adrian Brody. Now, I think they're going to give it to Adrian Brody because Brutalist swept at the Golden Globes, but I do want Timothy Chalamet to take it here. Next up is Best Director. You have Jakes Audriard for Emilia Perez, Sean Baker for Nora, Brady Corbett for The Brutalist, Jorge Fargiet for The Substance, and James Mangold for A Complete Unknown. Now, who do I want to win? Well, given the only options I have on this fucking list is James Mangold for A Complete Unknown, because I think he got the best performance out of Timothy Chalamet, more so than any of the other directors got out of their talented casts. But I do think they're going to give it to Brady Corbett for The Brutalist, because at the end of the day, Hollywood loves movies about the American dream and the pursuit of a career out here, and it's just more of an Academy movie than A Complete Unknown is. I think that if there wasn't a movie about the love of Hollywood or the movie about the love of the American dream, that A Complete Unknown would probably win. Although I do think that all of these films on this list do not deserve it over another movie that I'm going to talk about at the end of this discussion. And that brings us to the granddaddy of them all, the Best Picture. And the nominees are Honora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Dune Part 2, Conclave, Emilia Perez, I'm Still Here, Nickel Boys, The Substance, and Wicked. Now, a lot of these movies are clearly thrown on here because of the popularity. I don't think that Wicked has any chance in winning, but they recognize that everyone and their mother showed up to see this movie, so they're going to throw it in there to appease the normal audience that aren't diehard movie lovers like me and you probably are if you're watching this video. They want normal people to tune in to watch the Oscars, so I think that that's one of the reasons why some of these movies are on this list. Now, who I think will win is, again, The Brutalist, but who I want to win is Dune Part 2. That is the best shot movie of the year, the best directed movie of the year, the best cinematography of the year. I won't say it's the best performances out of the actors of the year, but I do think overall it is a masterpiece of a film, and the fact that it's not nominated for more in this is just a tragedy. So who do I think is gonna win? The Brutalist. But who I want to win and who should fucking win is Dune Part 2. But anyway, guys, that's my predictions for the Oscars this year and who I think will win and who I would want to win. All that being said, I want to talk about the fact that Denis Villeneuve was not nominated for Best Director at the Academy Awards this year. It is shocking that Dune Part 2 could be nominated for Best Picture, but not Best Director. You don't get to get a nomination for Best Picture and not acknowledge that this movie wouldn't be as good as it was if not for the director directing the movie and bringing this vision to life. It makes no sense that it's not nominated for Best Director. Denis Villeneuve was snubbed here. I hate talking about politics on this channel, but I can't for the life of me understand why, if not for the Oscars being political. It's a political agenda that they're trying to do here. I'm sorry. I am sorry, but Emilia Perez is not directed better than Dune Part 2. It's just not. It's not even on the same playing field. This Substance is not directed better than Dune Part 2. Anora is not directed better than Dune Part 2. Emilia Perez does not have a Paul Atreides leading an army into battle against the Baron. You don't have the deserts of Arrakis filmed in these beautiful wide shots in The Brutalist. You don't have Paul Atreides giving an epic speech to gain the trust of the Fremen of Arrakis in a giant cave-like structure with these beams of light coming in from the ceiling. There is nothing about any of those other movies that are directed better than Dune Part 2. And again, I think that because of the state that the world's in and our new president and the things he's doing, I think because Hollywood is so far left that they're using that as an excuse to propel Emilia Perez up on this category, bumping out Dune to make a statement. And it's just a fucking shame, and it takes the validity and the validation of the Oscars and brings it down for me and makes me think like, okay, they're using this Oscar season to more or less make a statement and not actually honor what the best directing in Hollywood of 2024 was. And yeah, it just makes me think that the Oscars aren't as important as they used to be, and I do truly believe the Critics' Choice Awards is the top of the top in terms of movie celebrations. I've seen it. I've seen Emilia Perez. It is not a great movie, and the fact that it's even nominated at all for Best Picture and Best Directing is laughable. It just is. You may disagree, you may not, but there's no way you look at something like The Substance and you think that that movie is directed better than something like Dune Part 2, which is this big, sprawling epic. It's just no way. But anyway, I'm done ranting about it. It's pointless at this point. Will I be tuning into the Oscars? Yes, because it is my favorite day of the year, but I am very saddened at the absolute sideline they did, the stiff arm to Denis, and how they excluded him from this list amongst movies that don't even deserve to be on it. Anyway, I'm sure you guys have your own thoughts and opinions. Let's talk about it down below.